Hello, I'm Emily Barker. A crisis is looming in early childhood education. A shortage of qualified teachers will be a major threat to the future of quality education unless pay inequities can be addressed. The Independent Education Union has presented Shadow Education Minister Carmel Tebbit with a petition signed by more than 12,000 concerned teachers, parents and community members, calling for an end to pay inequity for early childhood teachers. To discuss this, I'm joined by John Quessy, IEU General Secretary, Gabe Connell, Early Childhood Teacher and Director of Albury Preschool, and Tina Smith, an IEU Organiser who is also a former Director of an Early Childhood Centre. Thank you for joining me. Gabe, looking at the big picture, what are some of the changes happening in the sector?
Well, early childhood's going through a very important change at the moment. At last, it's recognised that the first 5 years of a child's life are the most important, and research has proven this, and the federal government with the state governments is injecting some funding into it to improve quality, to improve outcomes for children, to try to make it more accessible and equitable, and raising the standards. So we've had the National Quality Framework, and from that new regulations, new standards, and the early years learning framework, which is probably the most important.
I guess, Tina, why is quality education so important?
Well, research informs us that, like Gabe said, that the first 5 years of life are the most important, and children achieve lifelong outcomes or best outcomes if they attend a high quality service that has qualified staff, but most important if they have an educational program that is delivered by a university qualified teacher.
And that's the important bit,
that
isn't
it? The very important part is that providing those frameworks for children to be critical thinkers, forward thinkers, to actually carve their own way through their lives, because ultimately these children will be applying for jobs that we don't even know exist like today in the future. So.
And with quality comes a cost. This essentially for us is an issue of pay parity. We pose this question: why is it that the teachers of the youngest children in our society are paid so much less than those who teach children of an older age?
Is it a huge discrepancy?
It's a staggering discrepancy at the point of graduation. So entry into the profession, if you're teaching in a primary school, you will earn more than $10,000 a year than the teacher who enters an early childhood the early childhood sector. By the time they've got a few years under their belt, an experienced teacher, this blows out to $20,000. We don't believe that that's sustainable.
Is it difficult to even keep quality teachers in the sector?
Absolutely.
Oh, totally. Attracting teachers into the sector is really difficult. I could give you my personal experience, which is I was a childcare worker for many years, and when my circumstances changed, I decided I'd go to university and become a teacher. Well, actually, when I got to university and started to think seriously about it, I actually chose primary teaching over early childhood teaching because of the conditions and salaries. I would say I'm not that far from the norm of many other people who go into university looking at some type of career.
Are you the same, Gabe?
Well, not in that. I chose early childhood. That was my first preference. But I worked in the ACT, and wages we had pay parity. So of course I was able to do that. But when I moved to New South Wales, and I had this big discrepancy in wages, it was, my circumstances did change, and that's flowed on now, looking at retirement, as to having a lot less superannuation because I've been earning $20,000 a year less than equally qualified colleagues in the primary sector. And so, I look at what my retirement will be like, and it will be different than if I had have stayed in the primary sector. But we just can't get qualified staff, as Tina said. We're not attracting the young graduates into our profession, and we can't retain them if they're offered a job in primary.
We'll do a survey when we go to universities and talk to the young teachers who are about to graduate and ask them where they intend to work. They're qualified to work anywhere between 0 and 12 years old, and they're going to choose. They tell us they're going to choose. They're going to choose to go to primary schools because you cannot afford not to. It's just their heart says they want to work in early childhood, but their head says, hey, that's just not affordable.
So what is the union going to do to help to rectify this, or where do you start?
Well, we've got a petition to the New South Wales Parliament, and this is the first phase of awareness raising. we think it is important to raise this awareness not only with the community but particularly with politicians. One of the good things about our petition is that because we've got over 10,000 signatures and we've got close to 13,000, a petition of over 10,000 signatures in the New South Wales Parliament triggers a debate, and we think that debate is very important. We want our politicians to face up to their responsibilities, and we're going to work with our members in the centres to encourage them to engage with their politicians.
Right. We want teachers, we want our teacher members and interested families, communities and other teachers to actually lobby their local state MPs or services to invite their local MP to their service to have a look at what a centre looks like, but also what a quality program that's being delivered to children in those services. We would also like to know if those services have organised those meetings as well, so that we could help people along.
So what we're doing here is we hope to get a debate generated in the Parliament before the end of the year. It'll probably be in about November. As soon as we've got a date for that, we're going to get our members to engage with their local members of Parliament, and we're going to assist by organising a form of briefing. So we'll be having a briefing at Parliament House for the members of Parliament, those in the lower house in particular. They will have the opportunity of hearing these issues from the horse's mouth, and we will be getting our members to say to their local member, my union's having this forum, go to it.
And we need more funding.
Funding is absolutely imperative. New South Wales provides so much less funding than any other state. At the moment they're providing about $185 per student, whereas other states, Victoria, it's $220 and others many hundreds more. That's reflected then in what it costs parents. In New South Wales we have far and away the most expensive childcare because the difference is made up by parents. This has been, come about primarily because of a series of funding freezes from the 80s into the 90s, and we're going through another period of funding freeze. And yet we understand from the budget papers that there's some $40 million of unspent money earmarked for early childhood from the last budget.
There's also a funding review that has not been released either. So we're waiting for that. So we'd like our state MP for Education, Adrian Piccoli, to come forward and produce that
the Brennan report.
The Brennan report.
Yes. A report they commissioned, which we understand was completed and handed to the government at the beginning of this year, the results of which have not been made public.
Yes.
Interesting.
Despite the fact that we are in this exciting time with all these changes, early childhood is in crisis. We can't get teachers, we can't get staff, the fees are rising and their pay is just, well, it's going backwards in a lot of cases, with new teachers being put on inequitable awards.
And this is, all of this is avoidable.
That's right. We need a commitment from the state government regarding funding of early childhood services, and within that commitment it needs to be directed at salaries and the inequity that is there in early childhood teachers. We are talking about people who have gone to university for 4 years, they've come out with HECS bills, and now they're working in a profession that they love, but could maybe not want to continue that profession because of those inequities. So we really do need the state government to step up and solve this problem.
It's a worthwhile battle. Thank you all for joining me. And of course, for more information, you can go to teachersareteachers.org.au.